A lot of people wonder if they can pivot into real estate, especially if they're coming from a totally different industry. I'm Benji, the producer of the DealMachine podcast, and today's guest is John Fig. This is a guy who built a cannabis extraction company from the ground up to $100 million in just 3 years. He ended up IPO'ing the company alongside Jay-Z, of all people, and at one point literally had $2 million of cash buried under his house, and he was hiring Navy SEALs to help him move his money. After all of that chaos, John chose real estate as his next move because he wanted something stable, inflation-proof, and capable of building long-term wealth. And he proved that it works. He picked his markets, built a team, and acquired 19 rentals in just 1 year. Today, we're diving into his wild journey, the lessons he learned along the way, and why he believes real estate is the safest place to build your wealth.
John, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We connected last night. You said you're just getting into this, but you're also operating in 3 metro markets last year, and you're scaling to 6 markets this year, and you acquired 19 properties in the last 12 months with a goal of 200 plus units over the next 3 years and 1,000 properties in the next decade. So I got to ask what your first deal was to start, and why don't we just start there?
Absolutely. So do we want to do a first wholesale deal or first real estate deal when I was buying?
Well, which one came first for you?
Yeah, so I started last year. So I started purchasing properties after I sold my company. I just decided I wanted to invest in real estate, wanted to do that while I kind of had 2 little ones and just focused on that. So I chose 3 different markets because I was looking at like macro data, right? And everything on paper is you have St. Louis, you had Detroit, and you had Cleveland. And if you looked at the markets on paper, you're like, oh, Detroit should definitely be like the right place. Cash on cash returns look great. And I could not have been more wrong. So started my first journey. I went to all 3 areas. I wanted to invest in 3 and then ultimately divest to move into like 1 or 2 once I found it. So I started buying in Detroit to start off. Things look good on paper. And then as you can imagine, like that Metro Detroit is a really tough market. So then from there, we moved into St. Louis. So bought our first property there. And then once I actually moved into Cleveland, I found these incredible operators. So we found this group. It's called the Azam Group. They work with this company called Cleveland Remax, who manages 2,500 units in the area. And it's just like when you work with great providers like yourself, it just makes the whole journey better, right? And I'm just trying to cut the learning curve with working with pros. So they showed me kind of the zip codes that you could buy in, the different places that you could go. And because of that, we've scaled up. We bought like 15 properties in Cleveland. And then we've really scaled down in the Detroit and St. Louis because we didn't have the right operating partners in that area. And it really goes to show that like data is one thing, but really when you get boots to the ground, that's when rubber meets the road.
So did you raise money for this, or exactly what do you mean by you're partnering with operators and all that? Like how does it all work, business wise?
Great question. So for me, I always like to horizontally integrate before I vertically integrate. We always like to do that as a principle in business. So the first thing that we do is for the investing operating partners, we worked with the Azam Group. They were helping us kind of find off-market deals, things like that, helping us find stuff on the MLS, just like a standard kind of brokerage firm there. And then on the other side with the Cleveland Remax Group, they are a property management company. So we started off with property management with them. They still manage a certain portion of our portfolio, but over time, we're moving over to vertically integrate and have our own property management company.
Okay. So, all right, rewind. First deal, you were in Detroit and St. Louis.
Yeah.
Were you just buying something, or what do you mean by the partner? Just managing the properties, I guess, the 19 properties. Is that what you mean?
And what do you mean by that? Sorry, I just want to get it right.
Yeah. What's your business? First of all, first deal, was it wholesale or was it buying a rental?
Buying a rental. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm just cashing these properties out.
Where was that?
So yeah, so we bought our first deal in Detroit was our first one. And so, yeah, we just bought a property. It was like, let's say $60,000. We put 10,000 into it. The ARV is like 90, 100,000. So you're just kind of force appreciating it by 40 or 50%. It rents out for like $1,300 a month. And because I had cashed it out, like you're talking like probably 12 to 15% cash on cash return is what we were shooting for.
Okay. All right, cool. So that was first one in Detroit. How did you find that deal?
We were just working with an investment group out in the area. They were a bigger brokerage firm. And so they were just kind of helping me spot out the areas. But as you learn very quickly, there's conflict of interest because they want transaction volume and you want to get a good deal.
Okay.
Right.
So like, was it just a realtor or was it like a turnkey provider or like who was that?
Great question. So it was the Monza Group, and they are kind of like a turnkey provider, and they also just sell houses on the MLS. They're just a large brokerage firm out there.
Okay, so you kind of use them as a turnkey provider, right? They kind of identified the property, listed it, you bought it, they represented you. Did they also supply the construction contractor, referral?
They had other partners that they worked with, so they introduced me to some people that helped out on the construction side that were loosely connected.
Okay, and then are they managing it too?
They're not. So we have our own property. The property management group we use is Grant and Maine. They're awesome. Megan's great there. So they manage about 1,000 properties out there.
Okay, so they're just operating as a broker in this case. They weren't really doing a full turnkey. Okay,
Finding you the deal in the right location, but had connections for all the other pieces.
All right. So what came next? What was the next deal?
So what came next was we bought a property on Julian Street in St. Louis. So that was kind of our next one that we went through. And yeah, we had a real estate agent that we're using in the area. It was like out of Keller Williams, just kind of one of those brokerage firms. Got connected with the wrong property management company right out of the gate. And I've seen startups before. That was super fun. So this guy like basically scaled up. He got 400 doors under management in like 90 days. And then he like kept going. He was like, oh, I'm going to scale to 800 doors. I was like, man, you need to slow down. I'm like, I've seen companies implode. I'm like, you just need to chill. Like, I know it's exciting to grow, but you just got to get slow.
You're not growing well. You're growing. You're growing so fast. There's a ton of loose things. And
where's this guy with 400 properties? And I guess how is he coming into play? Because this is just your second property.
Yeah, so he was a property manager. So I wouldn't want to like say the name and bad mouth anybody.
Yeah, but you just found a property, and when you say you're working with an agent, like did you just contact an agent in St. Louis and say, hey, I would really like to buy an investment property? Or like what exactly did you mean by you were using an agent?
Yeah. So just like standard process, right? You're just trying to find the best providers for kind of each part of the chain, right? So I'm going to call 10 different brokerages. I'm going to interview all of them and make sure that which one fits, who I think is the most professional, look at reviews, all that stuff. I'm going to go to property managers. I interview like 5 to 7 of them, kind of figure out who we think is like the best. And then we'll even take on out-of-state investors because a lot of people won't even take on out-of-state investors sometimes. And so, yeah.
So you're not really running a direct-to-seller operation. Or you're not at this time yet, right?
And do you mean wholesale operation at that point?
Yeah, but no, I don't mean wholesale. I just mean direct to seller. You're just a guy who wanted to buy some rental properties, and
I'm just buying properties. Yeah, this is just a part of the journey.
You're just a guy, and you want to buy some rental properties. Like you picked Detroit and St. Louis. So you found an agent that could help you identify properties. Help you make offers in those places? Okay. Exactly. Well, you said it was standard procedure. And for me, it's very different, actually. So what I would do when I was trying to find my first rental property was I would go to properties that are listed, and then the agent would set me up with their buyer portal. And I was set up on like 5 buyer portals. I'm like, what is this? They're like really bad at communication. Yeah. And finally, on the 6th one, I was like, I don't need a buyer portal. I have 5 already. And they're like, what? You're supposed to only have 1. And it's like, well, listen, the agents, they're not like communicating that they're exclusively representing me. They're just setting me up with this portal. Okay. So that's why I'm trying to break it down exactly what you're doing. So you wanted to, you don't live in St. Louis. You don't live in Detroit, but you decided those 2 markets were like good for you. And then you kind of found an agent. You kind of went about finding an agent, right? You interviewed some agents.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So now that I got that straight, and so you bought a property in St. Louis, and the property wasn't the acquisition, in your opinion. The issue was that it wasn't necessarily like managed well, I guess. But I mean, what was that? Tenant selection? Pretty much.
Yeah. Tenant selection. Right. And that's why I end up vertically integrating, because you see the holes in the market, and I can go into that later. But anyways, there's a sweet spot with property managers. If you get them too small, they generally lack protocols, and they're not really quality controls. But the problem is that then when they get too big, let's say they manage 2,000 units, they're so good that guess who, if you're where the money flows through, who's the customer, right?
Right.
They're making money off me. So at the end of the day, the best operators will just kind of strip out your profitability slowly but surely.
All right. So that's fair. And then how many of these properties did you do before you realized that St. Louis and Detroit just weren't good? I guess they're fine markets, but you just could never find a good team there, right? So
Yeah. So it all depends on where you buy. And so for me, I wasn't, you always look for representation that can really protect you. And so we had a lot of people just trying to like get the transactions through as opposed to like playing the long game, right? I want to play the long game where I'm working years and decades with people. And so, so didn't get the right partners there. I bought 2 properties in St. Louis. I bought 3 properties in Detroit. I'll be divesting them over like the next couple of years because it's just not enough at scale to really hit the places I want to go. And then that's why when we got into Cleveland, and I can stop there if you want me to hit that before we go into Cleveland.
Yeah, no, let's go for it.
Yeah. And so Cleveland is where you could immediately feel the difference, right? So you find these turnkey providers, super professional. The Azam group, Mike Azam is an absolute like operator. This guy is so good. And so he's getting off market deals, on market deals. These people are looking at your buy box, very, very professional in how they run things, super high integrity. And so like integrity for me is everything because like if you're going to play the long game, everyone wants to play the short game, but the long game is how you truly win. And so we found them. They were fantastic. They connected us to their sister company, Remax, which is the property management company on the other side. And they are just best in class. It is the best in class property management company I've worked with.
What makes them the best? What's the differences between what you were experiencing in Detroit and what you're getting in Ohio?
Oh man, everything, right? So like you look at their SOPs, you look at how they run things like SLA, they're going to get back to you within like 2 to 4 hours. If you write them an email, they're going to make sure that anything that you want done there, because it's going to be like a repair person there the next day. They have SOPs for everything. Like nothing falls through the cracks, in other companies, everything falls through the cracks.
Yeah. What are some specifics in terms of like, do you have involvement in them finding the tenants and then in that process, do you have specifics that you want a tenant that doesn't have a dog or non-smoking, or do you leave that up to them?
Great question. You can define it. You can kind of say, hey, it can go as far as you want. You could say, hey, you guys run it what you think is right. But then on the other side, you can say, hey, these are the specifics that I have. And the first thing that I took over is I took over leasing. Because I knew that tenant selection was going to be one of the most important things. So I actually just took that immediately. So we handled the leasing process and we handled tenant selection. They kind of handled management and everything after that because I hadn't built up the vendor network because it takes time to meet the right contractors, go through all of that stuff. So they kind of let you choose across the board. But the other important thing is that they gave me a zip code map. So they gave me a zip code map of being, these are the places that we don't work in. These are the places that we work in. So it gave me my buy box for as I did acquisitions. Bingo, 100%.
So with the leasing part, to me, that is a time intensive piece. I do the same thing with my rentals, but I also just keep all the management as well because I've got a decent system built up. So for them, you're doing the leasing, but they take care of payment receiving and maintenance and all of that stuff.
Yep. So in the beginning, that's how we kind of put it together. And where we sit a year later now is I manage about 80% of our portfolio internally. So we now have full vertical integration. We integrated with AppFolio, kind of moved everything over there. We built out our own vendor network and then we kind of work with them. So if anything happens, you can always, anything were to happen, I say, hey, I don't want to manage again. I could literally take all the properties, move them back to them and just, let it run.
What got you interested in pursuing real estate investing in the first place? And are you using your own money for this, or are you doing hard money loans and then like kind of full burring out of the deals so each one actually doesn't take money, or what's your strategy?
Really good question. So I feel really fortunate in the fact that when we sold the company, we got a decent capital infusion from that. So I've just been buying these. So I started, it's kind of crazy. I was in technology for a decade. Did software development, taught myself to code, did that whole thing. That's a crazy story. I used to like sleep in my car and drive a limo and like meet all these crazy executives. And then I ended up starting a legal cannabis company in California. So when it went legal in 2018, I decided that I wanted to sell shovels in a gold rush. So we started a cryoethanol extraction company. If you've ever seen the kind of things that go inside of vapes, like that golden oil that goes inside. So we were the provider for like 80% of that in California. We ended up scaling. It was like 3.8 million first year, 38 million the second year. We did 100 million the third year. And then we IPO'd it with Jay-Z. It was a crazy time.
Oh my God.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, it was wild. It was, you just, we were at the right place at the right time and we work like crazy.
That's amazing. So that's what drove you into real estate investing. You've got quite a bit of cash and you want to invest it, right? Because cash over time, it goes down in value. So that's, you picked real estate as like one of the ways that you want to invest at.
Yeah, the way that I look at real estate is like real estate is an inflation adjusted savings account that spits off a dividend, right? So like you've got this like slug, this thing that just sit there, and then it will just continue adjusting for inflation as this thing, and then it spits off that dividend. And so what I wanted is I wanted both of those things. And so with the equities market kind of sitting where it was sitting at, I'm like, this looks way overvalued. I mean, just take like a 33, 32 PE ratio. We're talking about a 3% cash yield. It's like, would you take a 3% cash yield on a business right now?
Got it. Yeah, no, it's pretty low. So makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. And so now you're in Cleveland. Have you shut down? You're going to divest St. Louis and Detroit. You're not doing any more there. But you also do wholesaling too. So when did you do your first wholesale deal?
Oh man, so I started 90 days ago. So I'm so new to this. Don't take my advice on this stuff. I'm learning from the pros like you guys right now. But yeah, started 90 days ago. I did the first few contracts myself. I got really lucky. It's all about finding like the right kind of, you'll see a theme, right? It's about finding like the right partners, the right places. So I interviewed like 20 different people because I'm looking at my lead sources, right? And I'm saying, okay, how do I start? And you've got PPC, which is really, really, up there, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend $250 a lead or whatever it's going to be. And I don't even have a script yet. I'm like, this is a terrible idea. So then I kind of work my way down the quality chain. I'm like, okay, so you've got cold calling and SMS. Those kind of sit at like the lower kind of cost per lead. And so I wanted to do that and build out my team so then we could set up the infrastructure, right? Set up CRM, make sure that it's working, all of our webhooks to Slack, make sure that we have our sales team and our script running. And we've done about like 600 leads so far. We've got about 12 properties under contract, I think 13 as of today. And then, we just got our first closed lead yesterday. And we have like another 2 that are going to close in the next 2 weeks.
Wow, congratulations.
What are these assignments looking like?
No, great question. So we're in Ohio right now. So because Ohio is kind of like a lower tiered market, the way that I always look at it is it's kind of like 10% is what I'm shooting for. So 10% of what the property is worth. So our first deal is a $17,000 assignment fee, and that was on an 88K property. So that's actually pretty good from a percentage basis. The next one that's going to close will be like 13,000 on a 70K property. So better there. And then as we move on to kind of in other markets, goals, like hopefully we move up to like $250,000 properties. So you're getting up to the 25K assignment fees.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, I guess what did you think you were going to wholesale from the beginning, or what drove you to want to wholesale?
Yeah. So the way I looked at it is it was like dual path, right? So I was getting these off-market deals from the Azam group, and then I started getting less of them. And I'm like, oh God, I need to get more deal flow for this stuff. So I'm like, what do I do? And I had a buddy who was doing really well in wholesaling, and he was like, man, you can get tons of off-market deals that way. So I figured I could kind of do a dual path to where I'm getting these lead flows, I'm paying for the marketing. And if I can get these properties 20 or 30% off, then if they're the right property in the right area for me, I'll just buy them for the personal portfolio. And if not, then we have a dispo team that can run it on the other side. So it kind of becomes this dual pronged business.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And, man, that's really cool that you started. I guess, are you texting or cold calling right now? Because I know you're using a lot of data.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess let me introduce my partners a little bit. They aren't on this phone call, but working with these awesome guys, Haider and Sabi. So they're actually out of Islamabad in Pakistan. Super smart guys. Like this guy is like on the wait list for like Princeton and Harvard and stuff like that. He's like 25 years old, started this SMS company, and he has like consultants there. And as soon as we met each other, we're like, we really liked each other. We're like, I don't want it to just be like client relationships. Like I want us to like actually do something together. So they approached me about doing kind of a JV. And so the way that we worked it out is they've got their team over there. They do SMS leads, and we just kind of partnered it up together to where they're handling the marketing side. I'm handling kind of like sales, dispo, building out all the infrastructure, and we're just working together. So it's been really fun.
Okay. Got it. So, he's handling the marketing and he's sending you leads. And then when you say partner, do you actually split the wholesale fee 50-50, or how does that partnership work? Are you guys like own a business entity together, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, so we work through kind of like a profit sharing thing together. We just wanted to be on like the same side of the fence because obviously like when you're like on the client side, like their job is to like get you leads and maximize the price for there, but they want to be on the other side of the fence with me to where we can control our destiny together.
Yeah. Well, what does that look like? I haven't heard somebody do that before.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just we just come to an agreement on profit sharing and we just decide on a number that we think is both fair. And then from there, what we can do is we can get our leads kind of at cost because of course, when you run a consultancy, like part of your consultancy is you have to mark up your profit there. And that way, like I can get leads at cost. And then from there, we can kind of split the profit on the back end. So it kind of from a Pareto efficiency standpoint, it just makes it more efficient for me in the beginning as we start the business. And then we can scale up because they know so much more about this industry than I do.
Got it. Who's taking the calls? Is that him too?
No. So what we did is, so they've got their team on SMS. Then I built out a sales team. So we've got 3 sales team members. I got them a script. We went through it. I was closing the first 2 deals. So my deals are actually closing right now and their deals are getting to close later. So I did the first month of calls. And then after that, I got a sales team and started ramping up for the past 2 months.
Well, are they local to Cleveland or where exactly are they?
They're not. Yeah. So we're kind of operating the 2 places that we're finding really good people is we're finding people in Egypt. So Alexandria, Cairo, and then also in Pakistan.
Okay. So okay. So somebody's responding to the SMS, somebody in Pakistan's taking the call. And then are they actually making the offer or who's making the offer?
Yeah. So we just run this whole process. So basically like lead comes in, we get a Slack webhook. We have the person make the first call. They got on the phone with them. They go through kind of the first call script. And then after that, we kind of gather all the necessary required info. We then, have 30-minute break in between that. Tell them we'll call back in 30 minutes. We do an underwriting process. We have an underwriting team that will then go do all of the comps. We get to an offer that we feel good about. And then we go into the second call and we close on the second call.
Who's the underwriter?
So underwriter is also a part of our team.
Yeah, no, but who is it though? Because it's a new business, right? And it's like a very important part of the process. If you offer too high, it's not going to work out. So that's why I'm wondering exactly who is this person? How did they learn so much to make that big call, for you guys?
Oh yeah, dude, we are dog fooding the heck out of this, man. So right now I was doing comping in the beginning and now Hader, my business partner, is doing the comping and now he's leading someone below him. So we use everything. We use Privy. I don't know if you've ever used Privy before, but yeah, so we use like Privy. We have some ChatGPT scripts that we run to kind of like check everything against it. We do Zillow and we're kind of mixing this like machine world with this AI world. AI, you can't fully trust it. So you have to kind of merge it all together.
Of course. And so Hader is just a guy that you hired? Or
Hader's the business partner in Islamabad.
Oh, okay. So he now does the underwriting.
Yeah, so he's doing the comping and he's been kind of dog fooding that process the past month. And then we've been handing off to
I don't know what dog fooding is.
Oh, sorry. So dog fooding is when you test the process yourself. So you're the person who's actually like consuming what you're doing because I am a big believer in servant leadership. So for me, I don't ever want to ask a single person to do something that I haven't done myself or wouldn't do myself.
If you won't eat it, don't expect your dog to eat it.
Bingo! Thus the dog fooding.
You can say cat if you'd like, David. That's totally fair.
Yeah. Okay. I feed them everything. I wouldn't eat that stuff. I don't eat their food. No, I do understand that, appreciate that in business. I guess, I like servant leadership idea, but I think that I do it for a different reason. And I would say I want to know how to do something well enough so that way when I hire somebody to do it, then I know if they're doing a good job or not, because I've literally done it, and so if I haven't done it before, then I have to take their word for it. But what if they're just like kind of not telling the truth or making something or struggling with something that they don't need to be struggling with that I could help, so that's
100%.
Yeah, I understand the concept there. I just hadn't heard that phrase before.
Yeah, no, but you're totally right, man. It's quality control.
So you've acquired 19 properties, and I take it most of them are in Cleveland now, right? There's like 4 in the other cities, but you got, we're tied now. So I have 19 properties total, rental properties. They're all in Indianapolis, though.
Oh, that's awesome. Indianapolis is a great market, man.
It's pretty good. I don't have a team other than my executive assistant at DealMachine. is the one who might go put a lockbox on the door or do the tenant selection now. But I have never worked with a property manager. But that was nice. When I moved to Austin, she kind of took over those responsibilities for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You're in Austin. What a great place. I have tons of friends that are there. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, I really like it a lot. So you're going to go to 200 in the next 2 years. That's going to be quite a ramp up.
Yeah. So we'll see. You want, I think just like everything in business, you want growth to be uncomfortable, because if you're going through that much pain, you're going to be learning really fast, but you don't want it to be unstable. So what I always tell my team is you always want to be on that edge, right? Of uncomfortable, but not unstable.
Yeah. But the thing is about real estate is if you go too fast and you buy deals that aren't so good, then you kind of have a major problem and they're hard to get out of. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your kind of guidelines in the underwriting process? Like, do you need it to cash flow a certain amount by, you know what I mean? Like, right. Like what's your guideline? People have all kinds of different, underwriting. I'll say that because I could never buy a deal from a wholesaler in Indianapolis. And I don't blame them, but there's people that'll just buy deals for a higher price. And, they just never work out for me, but I don't blame the wholesalers because they're going to sell them for the top dollar. So that's good. It's good for them.
Yeah.
But I don't ever really waste their time too much when they ask me what my buyer criteria is. So obviously you're going direct to sellers. You must be looking for some decent deals too. So what's kind of your guidelines, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. As far as kind of like the guidelines, like cash on cash, buy box, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like what's Hater doing to decide if it's a good deal or not?
Oh, sorry. And I'm just trying to partition. We're talking about like investing and like me buying these properties in my criteria, or kind of like what's the criteria I'm looking from a wholesale perspective if I'm just trying to wholesale them.
Well, that is good. I didn't clarify. So I guess
both of those would be great to
both. I want to know both, but Peter's not, he's not like doing the underwriting for your personal portfolio, right? He's just doing the wholesale side.
Yeah. So I can probably hit my portfolio first, and then I can move on to the other side, and just stop me at any point if you want to clarify. Okay. So when I look at my personal portfolio, like the one thing that I will say is when you're kind of looking at my LinkedIn, it's like the 200 properties, and I definitely want to get there.
Yeah.
But
at
the same time,
great.
And so the one of the things I always have is I'm like, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. So like for me, it's like I have aspirations. Like I've got life boards above me. Like every year I make this kind of stuff. So it doesn't mean you're going to get there in exactly the timeline you want, but the key is like making sure it's like uncomfortable but not unstable. So like the kind of thought process that I had when I wrote down the 200 properties moving to 1,000 is that I would start off with single family homes, because people have this hubris about them, right? To where they like decide they're like, oh, I was successful in this business, so I should definitely be successful in this business. And it's just not true, because there's so much experience that's involved with that. And it's just ego that makes you say that. And like, I've been victim to it. Right. And so why I started with single family homes is because I didn't want to buy an apartment complex that was 32, 64 units if I didn't know what I was doing. Because there's a lot of really experience that like you have to get your teeth kicked in to know. And so the goal for me is I was going to like buy 19 properties, really learn the process. And once I felt stable in that, then I would start buying kind of smaller multifamily. I bought a fourplex was my last purchase. Then I kind of move up to like 8, 16, 32, 64. And that's where you can really kind of get that geometric ramp. But for me, I wanted to kind of stabilize in, get everything really feeling good for vertical integration for property management. Then I'll start the scale. Does that seem fair?
So you want to go above the single family homes. So you're going to kind of scale with multifamily.
That would be the goal. Yeah, for sure,
cool.
Man.
Oh, that makes sense. But again, how do you know if it's a good deal to buy? What's your personal buy criteria? Because for me, I try to always do a full burr. It's like, hey, I could buy it, put money into it, and it's going to appraise for 25% more than what I paid for it so far. But that's really hard, right? So I don't buy deals every month because it's pretty hard to find that all the time.
I think it's super, super fair. And I think I think you said it perfectly. It's how aggressive you want to be, right? And so right now I'm not aggressive because I want to focus on the learning curve. And then once you really feel like you're there, then you can start getting more aggressive. And so I always just benchmark it against, I'm like, what are my alternatives? So like I can make 4% yield in like treasuries right now. I can make maybe 10% of the stock market. Given where it's at historically, that doesn't work out over 10 years. If you kind of look at returns over when you get above 30 PE is like 1% for 10 years. So we'll see what happens. Awesome last 2 years. We'll see what the next decade looks like. And so for me, like I'm looking at like if I can make anywhere between like 8, ideally closer to like 10 to 12%, like cash on cash. And then you can get that appreciation buffer as well. Like at that point, you're making like whatever, like 12 to 15%, actual true return. And that's really great over a long period of time. And I like real estate because it's real. It's like two things at the same time. Yeah.
So for cash on cash, let's take an example deal in Cleveland. It's probably similar to Indianapolis, where the deal you're buying is probably worth what, 150,000, like total all in. Is that fair?
Yeah.
It is.
So the properties I'm buying generally, they're like, let's say like 80,000, like 80, 90,000.
All right. They're 80, 90,000. Gotcha. So when you say cash on cash return, you're putting a down payment on it. So are you buying it for 80 and then fixing it up, or it's worth 80 like from the day one? It's kind of, you just buy it.
Yeah. So I'm not typical in the way that I'm doing things. So like I am actually cashing these properties out. So right now I'm kind of moving money from treasuries and just buying these outright, which I know is atypical. Normally
Okay, so you're not
take out a loan
at all. You're not
just buying them cash.
Oh,
so these are unlevered returns.
Yeah. So if it's $100,000 house and it makes $900 a month, and you have no expenses that year, then that's about a 10% cash on cash return, right? Pretty easy.
Well, that would be gross. So correct me if I'm off base, but that would be like gross. Like, let me just use maybe a direct example. It's like, let's say you had like an $80,000 property or something and it rented out for like $1,300 a month. So if you got $1,300 a month times 12, that's 15,600 multiplied by like 60% because you have like 40% expense ratio. And then you divide that by 80 grand, that comes out to 11.7%. So that's kind of like more of our archetype of the deal that we buy. It's like buy for 80, rent out for 1,300, make about 12%.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. So I was saying if there were not expenses, but I think that it sounds like you're renting it for 1,300 and with expenses, that takes off about 400, right? So you're making about 900-ish dollars.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you'll have insurance, you'll have taxes still, you got repairs and maintenance, you got all those goodies that never go away.
Yeah. Well, I have a question then. I mean, I guess an $80,000 mortgage is kind of expensive, actually. The smaller mortgages are higher points and higher interest rates. So I was going to ask, though, why not use leverage to get a higher cash on cash return?
Yeah. So the way that I looked at it is like, one, I wanted to test the stability of the market first. So I wanted to kind of like buy unlevered, test the stability of the market. How long do tenants last in these properties? So then I can kind of build a financial model around it. And then once I kind of get to enough properties to where I've got all those metrics set, then I can bundle the entire thing together. And that's when I can put leverage on it. But because I'm like only like a year and a half in, I'm still learning that process. So I can probably do that at a later time, but for sure it could be possible.
Yeah. I actually just appreciate hearing your perspective on that. One thing I am curious about is what other things are you or have you invested in, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh man. Across the board. So, I mean, I've invested in commodities, I've invested in gold, I've invested in, obviously just like normal indexes, right? So like S&P 500, QQQ, I've invested in hedge funds. I am invested in a syndicate for mobile home parks. I wish I could have bought mobile home parks myself, but because the interest rate went crazy up, the cap rates were really far down, so they weren't affordable anymore. But if I was 10 years in the past, man, I would have done it because it's a great business model. Yeah. And so been across the gamut.
Has all that investment been after the sale of your company, or are those just? It was. Okay, cool. So my next question is then, I guess, how do you think about asset allocation? Obviously, you're ramping up real estate. Are you selling some of the other things to fund that, or are you just, you know what I mean? Like, how do you think about that? Are you kind of trying to roll everything into real estate over time?
You have to ask me a year from now, but I can give you my opinion today. Then it's always forming. So the thing that I didn't didn't really take into account when I sold the company is like, I never expected to sell a company. I thought this was gonna be like a cash flowing business. So it's such a weird thing because like normally like I was a saver. I saved like 30-50% of my money every single year for like 15 years, So it's pretty easy when you do that because you're like, okay, I'm dollar cost averaging. So if the market moves in a big way, it doesn't affect anything. But what's crazy, man, is like I sell my company in 2021, stock market's at an all-time high. What do you do then? Because like as a normal investor, you're always used to DCAing in. So then you have to be like, good God, am I going to put my money in at all the wrong moment? So I've kind of been like slowly but surely working my way into like the equities market, DCAing into real estate, kind of working my way in, buying over time. And the goal right now is about liquidity. So like I love real estate, and in a perfect world, I would put all the money in there. But the way that I'm looking at it right now is I probably want to have 50% in real estate and then have kind of 50% in these more liquid markets. Because like if stuff ever hits the fan, you want to be able to like pull from that and like really buy some incredible deals. So I think a lot of people don't value liquidity as much as they should.
Got it. I have a question about gold too. With the current climate that we're in, it's been a hot topic. I get Reddit threads from the gold thread all the time about people getting excited. So how did you end up, did you buy physical gold and have it stored somewhere, or did you buy an index fund, or like, how did you go about that?
God, man, in a perfect world, I'd have Fort Knox underneath my house and I'd be able to do all that stuff. I ended up buying GLD. So I ended up buying GLD because I was just like, I had a little bit of trauma storing money before. I don't know if you guys know anything about the cannabis industry, but I used to have to hire Navy SEALs. We paid them $40,000 a month to transport capital for us because we didn't have access to banking. So when I was running my company, I had to store like $2 million in cash underneath my house, like stored in my garage. So after that, I don't like to store any high value things in my home anymore.
Okay, tell me more about that. So you train Navy SEALs, right? So you obviously, so you're saying, so cannabis is legal in the state of California. You're in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. But it wasn't legal federally at some point, right?
Yep.
Therefore, putting it in a bank was a potential issue.
It jeopardizes their FDIC charter. So no banks want to take it because they could lose their banking credentials.
Okay, got it. So people are buying this stuff with cash. Did you take credit card at all, or did you just do all cash?
Had to be pure cash transactions. It was so dangerous for no reason.
And so you had to hire, physical security to store that much cash. And where did you go find the security? How'd you pick them out?
We literally just found these guys in the area because, the market's kind of popping up. So these older Navy SEALs that had previously retired, they had to start running the security business. And once we met them, I was like, these are our guys. So we started using them for transport every single week. They would take down like $4 to $5 million in cannabis down to our showroom in LA, which is where we sold bulk cannabis. They would then, we would sell it during the week. Then they would drive it back on their armored vehicles. They would give it to me at like 10 p.m. when I'm done with work. I would take $2 million, bury it underground. And in the morning, then we would drive it to like our local credit union, which was not worried about their FDIC charter. This is when it started to relax. And they would literally physically count like $2 million by hand. And we finally had to buy them a machine so I wouldn't have to be there for like 4 hours.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's not crazy.
So did these guys like stay at your house overnight?
No. So they would literally drop it off at my work. And so I'd drive like 20 or 30 minutes back to my house, just like in my Hyundai with like this box that no one would know. Just terrifying.
Wow. And so
this sounds like a Walter White situation. And
it's crazy. I'm like, if you knew me, like I'm the guy who's like writing code in like San Francisco. Like I was not that guy. And then I'm all of a sudden Walter White for like.
Meanwhile, you have a storage unit full of cash.
Yep.
So, so how long did you run that business before you ended up selling it, and who ended up, buying it? How did that come to be?
Yeah. Oh man. So we ran it for 4 years. Yeah. We had that kind of like ramp. It was like 300, 3.8, 38, 100. And then we IPO'd it that year. So you actually can't go public in the United States with a cannabis company because it's federally illegal. So where you had to go public is in the Canadian marketplace. So we went on the Canadian Stock Exchange. It was on the NEO. We did it through the 2021. I'm sure you heard about the era. There was a lot of SPACs. And so SPACs were a way that you could do a reverse merger into like an IPO. So we combined like 3 companies together. It was Kaliva, it was our company Sisu, and then we kind of merged and did this deal with Jay-Z, who sat on top of Kaliva, and all those companies merged in to make this one.
So then you said they did a reverse merger to have an IPO, but that's on the Canadian market, not on the US market.
It is, yeah.
Is it still on the Canadian market now, the combined company?
So it's not anymore. They like sold to another company. It was really brutal, man. The honest story of it, it was so rough. So when I was in the market, when we kind of all merged together, our company was doing like $100 million of revenue. We had about 15 million in profit. And then the other company on the other side was doing about like 40 million in revenue. And they were losing about like $2 million a month. And I'm like, I'm just doing simple math, right? 15 million minus 24 million equals negative 9 million. And we have like 300 million on our balance sheet. I'm like, we got this. We could totally make this work. We can turn all this ship around. And cannabis is a really hard market. You can see kind of across the board. But when I merged in with the company, they went from losing about $2 million a month to magically losing $8 million a month. So then we all of a sudden, like our profit on our company side couldn't kind of buffer the engine on that side. And so we went from like basically going to lose like 9 million to losing like $100 million a year on that side. And after 1 year, I actually ultimately left the company because we weren't moving fast enough to kind of right size the ship. Like all we had to do is horizontally integrate the company, drop all the vertical integration on the money losing parts and just like run it from there. But they didn't do it. And so ultimately I left and they divested my old company, and my old company Sisu is actually still private. They're profitable and they're doing super well. So it's like this crazy full circle.
Cool. Yeah, that's very, very cool. Man, so if you're a US based physical location and you want to go on like the Canadian markets, like I guess, is there any specific thing? Like, do you need a Canadian citizen to do that? Do you have to deal in Canadian dollars to do that? Like, what exactly are the requirements, of doing that?
Dude, it was why I'm going to mess with these details, so bear with me. But it was like, I've never done like an IPO. It's like, you're used to like buying on like Schwab, right? Or like Robinhood. Like you're like, you put $1,000 in, you go buy NVIDIA or whatever the heck you want to buy. In this case, when you like IPO, you have to go to these broker dealers in Canada. There's like 3 of them. It's like an oligopoly. They own everything. You have to go to these dudes and be like, hey, I need to unlock my shares. It takes like 4 weeks for them to unlock your shares, for them to even like be able to be tradable. And then you have these people that are like physically trading these stocks. Like you have to have people like physically selling it. It feels like something out of the 1980s. And then ultimately you could sell it.
Is that for anyone in Canada, or is it just because you were a US based person?
I'm going to mess this up. So I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think it was specifically because of the IPO. I think that there's brokerages in Canada where you can just trade normally.
Yeah. Well, the IPO, I mean, eventually the IPO is just 1 day. It's just an initial public offering, right? So after an IPO, then it would show up on Schwab for people to buy, right?
It does, yeah. So people can buy it on the exchange, and they also have like kind of the OTX exchange, over the counter exchange in the United States, where you can buy these shares. Like you can buy GTI or Curaleaf on the over the counter in the United States, which is then trading in Canada.
Yes. So again, I think the reason why your shares were locked is because you're part of the original founder, right? And the investment bank
Bingo.
put the deal together. Yeah. So that's like why it was so slow and archaic, right? But then after the IPO, it would be more liquid, right?
Exactly. So basically you have a 6-month lockup after you do an IPO, and that's just in the bylaws. So then they trade your shares over, it goes to these other people, but then it gets trickier than that. And these are all things you just don't know until you get into it. Then as an executive in the company, you have insider knowledge, right? So there's like blackout windows when you can sell, and people don't really appreciate how deeply liquid the United States market is. Like we are trading just trillions and trillions of dollars every single day. Canada and other markets around the world don't. So you have these brokerages that are literally talking with Steve and Barry and selling your shares over the phone. And so for me, I had to do a 10b5-1 plan, which is like a systematic trading plan that sells your shares over time. Because when you have insider knowledge, you have to be able to sell your shares.
Got it.
And you have to do it in a way to where you don't control it.
All right. Well, cool. I think that satisfies all my curiosity for the day. I really enjoyed diving deep into the topics. Honestly, it's super interesting, man.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. And it's like you got all these different industries in the world. I'm fascinated by wholesaling. I'm fascinated by real estate, and I think it's just one of those things where you just dive in. You just dive in and you learn as much as you can, and that's why it's awesome meeting guys like yourself that are moving and shaking in this industry.
Hey, appreciate it. If there's anything I could do to help, let me know. I mean, I know that you're not the one that's using DealMachine, so but feel free to share my number to your partner if I can be of a resource. Or if he wants to jump on and do a podcast about it, I'd love to have him on too, separately. So open offer. But yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, man.
No, you guys are awesome. We'll definitely I'll get you all haters info, and I appreciate you both.
Yeah, man. Sorry again at the beginning. It just took me a second to wrap my head around what you had going on, because it's quite a bit more involved than what we usually, hear about. But usually it's just a first deal, and now they're wholesaling and they're getting going. But you had like 8 layers there I had to break through. So it's late in the afternoon here. So yeah, hopefully, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, we got there and I get it. And that was super fun. So thank you.
Yeah. You guys rock. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
You bet, man.
You bet.
See you later, John. Thanks again.
All right. See y'all.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.